My dear Judeo-Christian brothers and sisters, although I am by no means tired of living and scared of dying, I must confess to having grown weary and sick of trying. Erasmus has worn me down with his stupid, insulting, presumptuous questions. It's long since become obvious to me that he set out to pose 100 questions for atheists without having any idea what those questions were going to be, because it's always a good idea to set a completely arbitrary but important sounding quota in advance, and without ever having met or at least having had anything remotely like a conversation with any atheist. He's living in a bubble, and as becomes increasingly obvious through the remaining 40 questions I have left to address, and yes, I do confess finally to have looked at the remainder, and man is it ever a sorry lot, it's a fundamentalist bubble he's living in. His mind is shut tighter than any gnat's anus. It's really, really sad to see a human being in such a stunted, twisted state of non-development. He's certainly a lamentable case, but I have an awfully hard time summoning any sympathy for him given how nasty some of his questions are. I've decided to devote just 2 more Sunday school lessons, the one for this week and next week, to Erasmus's remaining questions. I'll take on 20 per week in order to have done with these. And then, my friends, I'm going to have a few questions for Christians. Unlike Erasmus, I have no preconceptions as to how many questions there are going to be. I'll keep asking questions as long as I have meaningful questions to ask, and there won't be a snarky gotcha in the bunch. I'll also undertake this endeavor knowing that there's as wide a range of belief and understanding among Christians as there is among atheists. So again, unlike what we're going to see here today, my questions will be formulated with that fact in mind. My questions will not, however, be directed at fundamentalists like Erasmus. They'll be aimed at thoughtful, intelligent Christians whose minds haven't been rotted by biblical literalism. I don't care what fundamentalists think, and I won't care to hear their answers to my questions. I hope that gives you something a little more promising to look forward to. Meanwhile, there's this week's toxic waste to wade through, so let's just dive right in. Do you say God bless you when someone sneezes? No, of course not. Now, you didn't bother to ask what I do say, but I'll answer that anyway as though you had any interest in knowing what I think. I usually don't say anything at all. I can imagine that most people are probably a little uncomfortable when others, especially strangers, comment on their involuntary reactions to certain stimuli. Do you say God bless you when someone coughs, belches, farts? Why would you feel the need to say anything? Why put them in the awkward position of having to respond to your blessing with a thank you? That said, if I am moved to say something, it's always Gesundheit, and that's usually to counter someone else's audibly uttered God bless you. Why not wish people good health? So much more sensible than trying to cast a hex on the soul that's trying to escape the body of the one who sneezes to keep it from doing that. That's the origin of that blessing, you know. It arises from a stupid misunderstanding about what air and breath are, and the Bible has done a great deal to contribute to and compound this misunderstanding. Why do you want people not to say bless you when someone sneezes? Friends, I'm going to try not to lose my temper with Erasmus this week. He's not worth it. Erasmus, I don't give 2 shits what people say when someone sneezes. Say whatever you want. Knock yourself out. Yell, stop that. Or, if you do that again, I'm calling the cops. Or, take that shit somewhere else. Or, Jesus saves. Or, go fuck yourself. Or whatever else pops into your nosy, socially awkward mind, you nasty, presumptuous incel. Sorry, I'm making assumptions, aren't I? Why do you want to take prayer out of school? Well, isn't this timely, given the Supreme Court ruling just this week past? Erasmus, since I'm pretty sure that you mean Christian prayer, since that's clearly what you are and you show very little evidence of inclusivity where other religions are concerned, let me turn the question back on you. Why do you want to take prayers to Allah out of school? Why do you want to take the chanting of Buddhist sutras out of school? Why do you not want the grace and mercy of Lord Krishna taught in school so that those students may pray to him and receive great blessings? Why do you want to take Druidic prayers out of school? Get the picture, Erasmus? Of course you don't. You live in a bubble. You won't even listen to my answers. You're not interested. Should a teacher be fired for talking about God in class? That depends on what the class is. If it's a class in comparative religion, it's obviously appropriate to talk about the Christian God, and the teacher should catch no grief for it whatsoever, as long as they're not trying to convert the students to belief in a particular God. But if it's a class in biology, and the teacher is offering the students a creation alternative to the theory of evolution, then yes, provided due process has been given, and if the behavior persists, that teacher should be fired. Incidentally, I talk about various deities in my classroom fairly often. I teach world music to undergraduates. You can't teach world music without taking a close look at the world that music comes from, and a great deal of it is tied up with religion and worship traditions. One certainly shouldn't be fired for explaining that. But if I tried to convert my students to a particular religion, I absolutely should be fired, which is one reason I'd never do that. Should a teacher be fired for talking about Jesus in class? Same answer as for number 64. Should a teacher be fired for talking about Muhammad in class? Same answer as for the previous two. You really didn't think about these questions before you puked them out in video form, did you, Erasmus? If the answer to the last one was no, why is Muhammad okay but Jesus isn't? The question is moot. Go back and listen to my responses, or don't, and remain ignorant. Why do you want to censor opinions you disagree with? Can you say projection? Erasmus, it isn't my tribe who wants to do that. It's yours. My tribe is the First Amendment tribe. Yours clearly isn't. It's the First Commandment tribe. I doubt you've even read the First Amendment. I doubt you'd understand its implications if you did read it. Well, here's my favorite for this week. Why do you repeat information from scientists when you have no idea what you are talking about? You see why I wanted to get on through these, brothers and sisters? I really wish this troll would watch the responses I've given him. I wish he could hear me invite him to perform a physically impossible sex act on himself. My questions won't be like this. Why do you believe something can come from nothing? I don't. That would be your people who believe that, Erasmus, not mine. Let me paraphrase the very beginning of your sacred scripture for your benefit. In the beginning, poof, creation ex nihilo. I've never run into a scientist who thinks anything like that. Are you tying this idiotic question to question 69, where you ask why I repeat information from scientists without understanding? That's not information that comes from scientists. Are you making reference to the title of Lawrence Krauss's A Universe from Nothing? You haven't read the book, have you? Erasmus, why do you draw all your conclusions from reading headlines and book titles without bothering to read the actual articles and books? How do you rationalize the belief that something can come from nothing? I don't rationalize it because I don't hold it. How do you rationalize it, Erasmus? Where is your evidence that something can come from nothing? I don't have any, Erasmus, because it didn't. But you think it did, so where's your evidence? Have you ever observed something coming from nothing? Of course not, Nimrod. Let it go. Can you believe something without evidence? Now that's actually an interesting question, and I certainly can't say that of most of the drivel I've slogged through here. But as they say, even a stopped clock is right twice a day. I'd say that in order to answer it, I'm going to have to try to tease apart the meaning of that word believe. I've had enough conversations with fundamentalists to know that we often talk past each other on this very point, and I don't want that to happen here, so let me parse it a little. On the one hand, I certainly do believe the things for which I've seen evidence. In those cases, the meaning of to believe is pretty close to that of to know. And when I tell you that I believe evolution to be a fact, I'm essentially telling you that I know that. And the reason I know it is that I've spent years examining evidence that Erasmus and others like him won't even look at. Then there are things that I believe to be more than likely true based on precedent, reputation, probability, sworn testimony, things like that. I believe it very likely that Arctic sea ice will disappear during the summer sometime this decade, perhaps within a couple of years. I don't know it to be a fact, and I won't know it to be a fact unless I live long enough to witness it, but given all the models, the historical data, and the trajectory that ice is clearly on, my belief is certainly warranted. In that case, I suppose precedent and probability could be counted evidence. At least that's the reason I believe this scenario to be likely, but they certainly are a different kind of evidence from direct observation. There's nuance in the world, Erasmus, and a nuanced world calls for a nuanced response to understanding it, something that fundamentalist religion and those caught up in it are completely incapable of. Do you believe in extraterrestrials? Brothers and sisters, when I formulate my questions for Christians beginning in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do my viewers the courtesy of making my questions clear. That generally means defining my terms and supplying some supporting information. As I'm sure you've noticed, Erasmus is notably stingy when it comes to supplying definitions and supporting information. To answer this question, for instance, it will obviously first be necessary to define the term he's using. By extraterrestrials, does he mean life on other planets generally? Or does he mean little green men who hop from planet to planet on a flying saucer so that they can probe the sentient inhabitants of those planets anally? If he means the latter, that'd be a big no. If he means the former, well, yes, I have every reason to believe, that is, to think that life is very common in the universe. If Erasmus understood the first thing about abiogenesis and evolution, he'd probably think so too. But the second creation story in his holy book, remember, begins with the creator of 1 trillion galaxies kneeling down, molding a clay figurine, and breathing into its nostrils the breath of life. So he obviously doesn't have a fucking clue why I would think that the universe is teeming with life, most of it microbial, and none of it flying around in antimatter-powered saucers. Do you believe in ghosts? No, I'm an atheist. Do you believe in hyphenated demigods? No, I'm an atheist. Brothers and sisters, do you suppose Erasmus has the first idea what a demigod even is? I'd bet dollars to donuts he doesn't. If he did, he probably wouldn't have hyphenated the term. Do you believe in dinosaurs? This question is wrongly framed. Let me see if I can clear this up once and for all by making reference to Erasmus's previous 3 questions. They are, do you believe in extraterrestrials? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in demigods? In those cases, the question is properly framed because the object of belief, more accurately, the thing believed in, is either physically impossible or supernatural. Those are the kinds of things deluded people believe in. I do not believe in dinosaurs. that construction does not apply to dinosaurs. The existence of dinosaurs is an inescapable fact, regardless of whether we're talking about those monsters that roamed the earth during the Mesozoic era or the modern birds that sing outside my window. A thinking person does not believe in facts. Such a person simply accepts them as true. Erasmus, a big part of your problem is grammatical. I believe I've said this to you before, but here it is again. Unclear expression is a sure sign of muddled thought. A great deal of semantic confusion has its origin in grammatical malfunction. Do you believe the earth is round or flat? You're not the least bit serious about this, are you, Erasmus? You never were you? You've never met an atheist, much less had a conversation with one. Isn't that right, Erasmus? I do not believe the earth is either. There's not even a choice there. Every flat earther believes that the shape of the earth is at least roughly that of a disc. In other words, round and flat. And that is indeed the way the Bible describes it, which is one of about a gazillion reasons not to trust a single word in the Bible. Now, if you want to know what I do believe, and I have no reason to think that you do, but I'm going to say it anyway, I believe the earth is exactly as described by every one of my teachers from the first grade on, and some of them were damned stupid, but none of them so stupid that they proposed that the earth is a flat, round disc. They all understood it to be a sphere, or more accurately, an oblate spheroid roughly 8,000 miles in diameter. That's what I believe, Erasmus. And it's not because the scientists say so and I just repeat whatever they say without having any idea what it means. I've examined the evidence. I've also read the Bible. That's how I know your Bible has it all wrong. Do you believe in miracles? Well, getting to the end of this week's crop of poison ivy certainly feels miraculous. I'm an atheist, Erasmus. Why are you even asking atheists such a non sequitur of a question? Draw your own conclusions if you're capable of drawing conclusions without someone just, telling you what to think. Wasn't that fun, brothers and sisters? Well, of course it wasn't. About the only thing I can hope is that sharing such treasures as these questions casts a little useful light on a warped, nasty state of mind. Erasmus is arrogant and close-minded, and his religion is stupid and dangerous. I could say that about fundamentalists generally, and their religion. What I do not know, and what I will never know, since Erasmus has no intention of showing up here and setting the record straight, is whether he's arrogant and close-minded because of his stupid, dangerous religion, or if he embraced his stupid, dangerous religion because he's arrogant and close-minded. The causation could flow in either direction, as far as I can tell. I'll finish up with these questions next week, and man, will that final installment include some temper-testing doozies. Stay safe out there. It's just getting weirder and weirder.